They have. Look up that's last rest. No.
Okay.
Malia, can you hear us?
Excuse me, are you hunting when?
Yes, it is kind of.
Make sure we're.
I don't know who you are. My name's Russell.
Just wherever they can hear us.
Yeah, that's wrong.
Can you hear us?
Hooray Whisper, I'm part of here. It's an ADW called gameplay now.
I see you on mute, but I don't hear you say.
You're the one that's wrong.
Basic.
And I used to have.
Jim went up to actually yesterday or something.
Okay. Conversations about outback betting and because we were, you were
I'm
first.
not hearing anybody online. Can anyone else online?
And, industry. Yeah. And now, the other way.
So we'll talk a little later.
How do you think the problem is?
Do not know. Microphone, the speakers are on, the microphone's on. The fact that Malia is actually unmuting her microphone.
And you can.
Right, let me try this. So 3 years.
Turn my.
All right, so Malia can hear us. We're not hearing you. That's problematic.
The Andrew on.
All right, let's just see if it's anyone else. Andrew Silver, you just joined. Would you mind giving me a mic check? Can you speak to us, Andrew?
Hello, good morning.
Oh, that works,
Okay,
good.
all right. So the problem is Malia.
All right, we won't worry about it, just Malia.
Thank you. All right.
All right, go ahead and call me. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Too much fun.
Why did you, how'd you find an actual gap?
Okay, I call this meeting of the Advanced Deposit Wagering Committee of the Oregon Racing Commission to order. Roll call.
I will be doing roll call in the absence of Karen Parkman. My name is Connie Nguyen. I am the Director of the Racing Commission and I am here. Commissioner Stein, Commissioner Dr. Stein. Here.
Here.
And Commissioner Barry
Present.
and Micah,
Here.
100% here.
Excellent. We're gonna go to old business, which is, Mike is basically running this meeting.
Yeah, actually, before we get started there, I do have an additional agenda item. I'm going to put it at between after 7, and I'd like to just add a note to discuss the recent ARCI model proposal that we had discussions last month. So just speed, talk about it after 7. Need to vote on accepting that change?
Just say-
I approve that. There we go. Yeah. All right. First item up is old business. We had in previous discussions regarding public reporting of handle by the ADWs. As a refresher, the Oregon Racing Commission currently does quarterly handle reports on our public website. It's broken down by every ADW. We have been doing so for years and years and years. There is no rule requirement towards that. It's just a public service we have been doing. It has come to my attention that it is not something that is equitable for all of our licensees. We have publicly traded companies, we have privately traded companies, we have nonprofit companies. And there has been a request that we modify that process. And I would like to suggest that we continue to publish data, but we make it an aggregate number. That data that we publish is something that we do that shows all the handle that comes through the Oregon Racing Commission, ADW, multi-jurisdictional licensees. I'm willing to even to break it down into a monthly component.
Yeah, are there any members of the ADWs who would like to speak to that proposal?
I support that issue, but
Please come up and identify yourself for the record.
Sure. Russell,
Yeah.
Fine, President, Gameplay Network. I am one of the companies that feels that anonymizing that information and aggregating it is better for our company. We're a private company. We have, over the last decade, invested very large sums of capital to try to expand racing to a new population. And the relative success and reach of our business is something that we feel is private information. We pay taxes to the IRS. They do not share our information as a private company. We pay a lot of jurisdictions fees. They do not share our information. It's considered private. And it does not help my business to have competitors or people who may have other interests in us specifically have access to information, which until and eventually if we become public, we'd be fine with. And at this stage of our business, it is deleterious. So we would prefer that that information was not available specifically on an ADW by ADW basis.
It's important to note that this data that we're looking to do could not change the state mandated reporting of Greyhound breaking and broken out by Western Racing.
Anyone else in the room? And then we'll go online. Okay. Anyone, let's see, we have, it looks like we have a couple people with their hands up. We'll start with the, I'm taking a wrong, sorry.
No worries. I believe, Andrew, I think you have your hand raised. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, your friend Sarah, Carrie. You're recognizing.
Thank you very much. As long as this information was still available via public information request, we would have no objection. As I pointed out to the commission, there are other jurisdictions that publish this information on a individual basis per company. So I think it would be strange for other jurisdictions to report that and the Oregon Racing Commission to view that as confidential information. But again, as long as the information was available via a public information request, if asked for, we would have no objection.
My understanding is that we would simply stop broadcasting it. It would still be available.
Well, yeah, and every freedom of information request is,
Yeah.
goes through due process, goes through due process.
Goes through due process.
Sorry, Russell Fine again. No, I'm specifically requesting actually this information is kept private. I am not aware of any requirement that potential competitors, for example, could access my revenue figures, my reach figures. So that is something I'd prefer not be available unless it is required.
Consider that. I just don't know what our legal obligation.
Also, I'm not aware of all of the reporting of all the jurisdictions personally, but I would wonder with those that publish specific information, whether they're publishing multi-jurisdictional handle for ADWs or only the handle in their individual state. And in that case, I might have a very different opinion. Right? So the publishing of the amount of ADW handle I generate in Oregon from a privacy perspective as a corporation is different than what I would be interested in from a privacy perspective on my entire handle and revenue base as a multi-jurisdictional operation. Right? So I can see those very differently.
Last chance on Andrew before we go to G. All right, Andrew's here.
Well, I'm sorry, the audio in the room cut out for a moment. So I'm sorry if you were calling on me for some time there. Yeah, I think that this issue has been before the committee and maybe even the commission on at least one other occasion. It's Churchill's generalized position, and I'm not going to speak at length on this, that more transparency is better. There's been references to other jurisdictions that provide this, that publish this data on a licensee by licensee basis. We view it as completely appropriate that where a business avails itself as licensure as a licensee in a jurisdiction, that, that jurisdiction would be, able to report that information. I didn't come to this meeting prepared with a list of jurisdictions that do versus do not report this information, but it's certainly the case that quite a few and quite a few large ones publicly report this information. I'll also note that they're both Churchill and perhaps other ADWs may be parties to contracts that make reference to handle information that's publicly reported. So it's there are agreements that have been entered into in reliance on the public availability of this information that could potentially be made more complicated by virtue of this information no longer being available. So there's quite a few reasons that favor it remaining available. I think that to trend away from transparency would be concerning on our part. Appreciate everyone's time for considering the comment.
Thank you, Andrew. I believe Gene, you had your hand up next to identify yourself, please.
Yes, this is Gene Shabrier for ExpressBet. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Hey, I kind of want to echo what Andrew said. I think he was way more eloquent than I was going to be, but I would very much in favor of simply keeping it the way it is right now.
Noted. All right, so I believe we're just going to table this. We will talk to legal about our options on this.
We'll talk to legal.
And then we will come back for further discussions. All right, okay, go on to the next one, please do. Just wanted to do a quick summary. I have unaudited data that I don't really, not really share. It hasn't been, this is basically, I was looking at the handle numbers for the past couple of years. This is data that is published on our website. And wanted to see how the trends were looking, despite the fact that we have lost a couple of our licensees over the past couple of years, seeing fairly consistent handle across the past 30 months or so. Despite the track closures we've seen across states, it is impressive that it remains so consistent through the Oregon Racing Commission. That's really all I wanted to share here. Any data, any comments regarding that? I'm going to move on to number 3. I am going to start requesting from the ADW licenses additional reporting as I am allowed to through my administrative rules. I'd like to do a monthly handle broken down by state or jurisdiction. This is going to help me with our audits to confirm compliance with Interstate Horse Racing Acts, that the handle that we're seeing coming in are coming from residents of states that are permitted and that are included in every licensee's kind of operations. Wanted to make sure all of the licensees were aware of that. I don't see this as being a particularly difficult ask, but I'm willing to take input. I believe also if I can include this in my audit reports, this would be a benefit to every ADW who may be looking to expand into other jurisdictions. They can point to the ORC and say, and we are in compliance.
And with that we ask if there's any time constraints on this. I would think that you wouldn't want to start that until the next calendar year or fiscal year.
There are others challenges. I think this is a very easy ask, but I'm willing to take input and thoughts about.
We need to get you.
Yeah. Is there any reason why this is a bit of a challenge or an ask that from the ADW side? Way online.
Oh, there's
Just a question for clarification, and I'm sorry, I think I might have lost the audio for a moment. Are we on item 3? Are we talking about reporting by on a state by state basis?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's,
Only the total handle. We
Yeah,
haven't
yeah.
got anything broken out
Well, I'd like to see the handle
by
by
state.
state, that's
Yeah,
all.
but not the
I don't need-
taxes
No, no,
per
no,
state and
yeah,
all
I
that.
don't need that. I just to see if suddenly I'm seeing handle from Utah, I'd like to know why.
understood. I guess I'm trying to determine whether this is a request as kind of associated with item 2, the public reporting of aggregate handle data, or if this is as part of our
Completely separate, completely separate. It's not something that I'm looking to report. It's something I'm looking to use to verify compliance.
Yeah, okay, understood. I think that that's one that I don't believe we would view as objectionable and something that we'd view as workable, but I'd have to, respectfully ask for some time to clarify and maybe report back to staff. Having this being our first kind of opportunity to hear about the reasoning behind the request, but I think we understand the request, and I think it likely would not be objectionable. It would be workable.
Andrew, I think we'll table it until the next meeting when everybody has a chance to kind of consider it a little bit. Has had a chance to consider it more.
We can consider a effective January 1st component and give time to not only respond, but line up that and automate that reporting. I assume that would be an easier process.
And again, I think I just pointed out, we're navigating this same challenge of dynamic operating environment and not springing things on people at the last moment. We want to be effective, responsive. We don't want to be impulsive and give people whiplash.
Yeah.
And towards that, you're going to love number 4. Rulemaking discussion. I'd like to start a dialogue about a desire to review your patron's residency. KYC currently is done by the majorities upon sign up. Or if there's an address change initiated by patron. I am aware of some situations where people move and don't update. I would like to have some discussions about timeliness of potentially rechecking KY residency. I understand that this is an additional burden, that there's developmental considerations. There are significant other aspects, cost considerations. Every lookup is not free. I believe this is something that is warranted, though. And I'd like to open up the dialogue to all of the ADWs and as well as the commission staff here about the feasibility and reasonability of this type of request.
Could you explain a little more about what?
So I will share an apocryphal story where I happened to be sitting at a poker table with an individual. And we were talking about horse racing, and this individual did not know who I was or what I do. And I was in Vegas at the time, and this individual had moved to Vegas many years prior and still had an active account with a licensee, and had expressed to me that despite my prejudice around this, that they had done withdrawals and they implied they had done wagering. I investigated further and I found this to be a slight misunderstanding on my behalf. I believe there wasn't any wagering going on. It was just a withdrawal component. But I believe it is certainly, and I do know of other situations where something similar to this has happened. People move and they don't want to update.
Or they don't think to.
They don't think to, or folks try to, anyway, it's something that it's outside the boundaries of our rules and our regulations of maintaining that all the clientele are within jurisdiction. This is permitted. So if someone moved to Utah from Oregon and just, well, you know what, I don't need to update my information. Well, after a certain amount of time, the KYC, the know your customer component, the databases do catch up. So if after 4 or 5 years, even though they're using the account, perhaps a quick check, where are you residing now? Is warranted, I believe, in order just to ensure the integrity of the system. Recognize first, anyone from the floor?
Okay, I got a lot.
Yeah, well, we'll start here, since you're here. You made the trip.
I don't.
Hi, Russell Fine, President Gameplay Network. I think this would warrant some significant discussion, like what would be the scope? For example, our database is hundreds of thousands of people, most of whom are not active. So the cost necessary to KYC people who are not generating enough revenue would be something that could be problematic. Another thing I think that would be worth considering is the recent rule change that permits us to take wagers based on geo as opposed to residence if chosen, i.e., for example, our company specifically geo checks. So if someone moved to Nevada and they try to place a wager, it wouldn't matter anyways if they had an account because we stop them from wagering in Nevada regardless. So in our case, I'm not sure KYC is important because technically if you're in a physically legal location per the regs, we are permitted to take a customer whose residence may not allow them on a residential basis solely to have an account, but we technically do allow that. So I think there would need to be some decision-making on whether the company was relying specifically on residents for its KYC versus those that might also be doing a hybrid of geo. So I just think it would be worth discussing that. And also the amount of activity of the player, i.e. people who are recently playing might be more important to confirm, if at all, than people who are rare or dormant.
I'd argue frequency is relevant. 1 versus 1,000. 1 is still a violation.
Yes. Again, I'm saying this warrants discussion. I don't personally have the answer, but I do see some things that would really need to be thought through in order to really put in place a new policy.
To register based on the physical.
Yeah, historically,
Residential
yeah,
address.
historically, residency has been the key. But only up until last year did we introduce, or if the company has approved methodology where they can, through technology, demonstrate where the weight is getting here.
Yeah, it's also very expensive.
Okay, that's the.
And certainly a rule could be structured that say notwithstanding.
Right. So if we're talking about everyone be checking every 5 years, that could cost millions and millions of dollars. It could put a small company under. So it would have to be very restrictive. Or another suggestion, it's one that came up at ARCI, our recent conference. This came up from GLI themselves. They said, well, you're not doing anything, no way. And someone suggests, one of the ADW said, well, we send an email out every so often. So would it be an option? And GLI and ARCI were all very supportive of that, even though it's not the full-fledged thing, but at least on a every 3-year basis or something, sending an email out that you can prove you've sent out in an auditing process saying, if you change your address, please contact such and such. This is a requirement.
I wouldn't see any problem with that from our operation because we have mass emailing anyways.
It would be
Now,
financially cheaper for the company and easier.
I would take it to the next step of a pop-up where you can now save, yes, we asked.
Depends on what, yeah, I think that a notification, a formal notification that's approved by the commission.
That would certainly be the easiest.
So the actionable item would be to bring a vote to the full commission. Vote on.
I think we need more.
Well, I think this is far too soon. We need to have discussions still, you know. So.
I'm just going to say one last thing and I'm going to go sit down. I do think if the policy were to require us to keep accounts open to have some refresh on KYC, that it would be notable that we would have to have some ability to communicate bidirectionally with a player. We could not, for example, take their old KYC and rerun it because 10% of the population moves every year. So if I do it every 5 years, close to half of my population is going to move. Most of them move locally. So technically, even though the address I have may not KYC, most of those people probably move locally in the same state. They're still KYC. I will reject when in fact they still live in the state. So I do think there has to be an actual communication with the player rather than a resubmit of existing data, because I think that would potentially be an error. Thank you.
So, for instance, when I moved from New York, had a couple ADW accounts. I was, even though my original registration was New York, when I moved to Oregon and wanted to place a wager on Easter, New York has a specific regulation that there can be no wagering by a New York resident on Easter. Even though I was in Oregon, it blocked me. So on the one hand, I was still, I guess, according to whether it be TVG or Saratoga Bets, I was still New York, even though I was physically in Oregon and an Oregon resident. But when I was appointed to the commission and I had to eliminate those accounts, I couldn't get my money out because it had me listed as New York. So I had to go through this, verification of, where I lived, et cetera, et cetera. But I was never notified at any point, either by TVG or Saratoga Bets, that I needed to update my physical residence. So I understand some of this, what you're
Challenge here, yeah.
but the geo part of it did, I guess, I know Jackpot does that, or seems to do it, because when I'm in California and I try to play Jackpot, boom, can't do it. So I guess that's all geo.
Yeah, and again, the ADW side of the geo component is still fresh. It's still a process that is being rolled out by ADWs. Some of them a little more aggressively than others.
You got it.
All right, before we go to the screen, we have Will here. Please.
Thank you. Good morning, Will Alan-Pievich, Chief Operating Officer for AmWest. Great discussion, took a lot of great notes, plan to play an active role in this. Formal notification seems like a really good resolution on whether someone's bet $1 once or 1,000 times over a criteria. We would just ask that if we do have to do full KYC, that it's some type of active account. So like Russell, tens of thousands of accounts we have. We hope they come back and wager with us. But if they haven't for years, it would be a waste.
I think we're the same. I think I'm on the same page. I have just a side note of here, perhaps a trigger based on age of the account, plus wagering. The fact that it's so old, it doesn't make any sense. But now somebody wants to come back and do the Triple Crown, and they haven't bet for 5 years. Let's do a little refresh.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah, and then we could still do the notification if they come back. Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Andrew, you're up. Can't hear you, bud.
Morning again, everyone, and thank you all again for considering my comments remotely. I appreciate the committee and staff's time. I did not announce my name and affiliation when I was first called upon, so I'm sorry about that. But I'm Andrew Silver for Churchill Downs and Churchill Downs Technology Initiatives Company. I'll echo our peers' statements as it pertains to active accounts. Certainly, TwinSpires has a significant number of accounts, and to re-KYC inactive accounts would be extraordinarily costly. I think, Micah, you may have inadvertently hit on a logistical concern that comes to mind to me when you mentioned people coming back and wagering on Triple Crown. And that's that, there are some folks who may only wager on the Kentucky Derby. And if those folks who are not in need of any kind of re-KYCing are all of a sudden thrown into a manual KYC circumstance, their documents may not be able to be verified in time for the one and only event on which they would like to participate in on an annual basis, for them to actually make a wager. Again, it's a well taken point by you that whether it's one violation or 100, a violation is a violation, and I appreciate that. But I think that there are some legitimate logistical concerns that would give us pause before fully endorsing this. I will note that all our terms and conditions require anyone who agrees to have an account with us and to whom we accept an account to keep their data updated at all times. I do think that I don't want to commit to anything on behalf of our marketing or customer service team, but I think that to send the occasional email, I would imagine would not be objectionable. And I think the last note that I'll interject is that this may be less of a concern than than you may think it is. I know with certain payment methods, absolutely with check withdrawal, a check can only be withdrawn to a verified address on file. I believe the same may go for certain other deposit and withdrawal methods. So there are other things that will require folks to, just as a matter of course, if they're an active player, get their verify their address from time to time. So I'll leave it at that. I appreciate the consideration and I absolutely understand the concern.
Yeah, I appreciate that too, Andrew. Thank you. You have comments for?
Just gonna say something to consider. I do think we need to percolate on this to take some time to make sure that we've heard from all of our ADWs, and some aren't here currently. And I know that Russell's got some more comments, but we may want to use some system of some type of notification, depending on what everyone decides is best. And it may be that they have different offers depending on the population size. And in addition to that, we could be doing samples during the audit where you say, based on their size, I want you to rerun these 10 accounts and, or 50 accounts at large, which is still expensive, but it's not like the entire database.
I want to acknowledge that right now, it sounds like the logistics of doing this are challenging. The rate of change technologically is so fast at the moment that it's entirely possible that it's very complicated today will not be so complicated, maybe in a very short period of time.
It's not necessarily the complications, it's the third-party integration and the cost.
$25 to $50. Well, how much does it cost?
Well, when I was running it, it was $2 fan ago.
Even $2 if you have
Yeah.
4 million accounts.
I fully agree. That's why I was having this discussion of how is there a reasonable path towards this vision.
So for our next meeting, we want to know about a balance between what it's going to cost and the enforcement value that we're going to get out of it.
All right, brothers, I'm sorry.
So I just want to note two things, Russell, fine. Speaking again. One is you used the term violation, and whenever I hear that word, my ears prick up because we work very hard never to have anything called a violation ever. Technically, for us, this is not a violation. We are under terms of service to perform a certain step of operational policies to ensure that we do not have someone who is, to the best of our ability, not living where they said they were. Our terms of service require all players to keep us updated. If they do not, their account will be terminated. But technically, it would not be a violation because we don't have any way of knowing. It's a person knowingly violating terms of service from our perspective. It's not actually a violation between us and the ORC per se.
Thank you.
Just want to point that out.
I'd like to retract that.
And as far as the cost, keep in mind, if you do an audit, I don't think the cost is $2 for us just to run an automated because that wouldn't be sufficient. If you were going to come in and audit 10, 20, 30, whatever number it is, again, if we have a 4-year-old account, a 5-year-old account, it's entirely possible it's going to initially reject, which means a person is going to go to a physical portal, pull the records on the person's latest address, TRW, et cetera, more costly. I also have now staff doing this. And I think very often it's going to turn up, you're right, they don't live at 123 Main Street anymore in Dubuque. They do, however, now live at 456 Maple Street in Dubuque. And that's a known move. So from our perspective and the players, that was a lateral move that didn't really require a change from a perspective of inability to play, but the amount of manual effort necessary to do that would not be a couple of dollars.
Thank you for that too. Expands my understanding from how that works for you. So I think we'll table this one. I have some more discovery to do, and some more discussions to have. Great.
Anybody have that? Okay, Mike's gonna go get the information.
Next item is an additional discussion. I'd like to, as many of you may be aware, we are deploying a new database solution as a new licensing system. This will enable us to streamline not only individual licensing, but our ADW licensing process. It is something I'm very much looking forward to. The current renewal periods for the ADW licenses as defined in rule allows the applicant to choose a 1, 3, or 5-year option. Does it say 1 to 5?
Our rule does.
All right.
The application says 1, 3, or 5.
Okay. All right. And I am proposing, in order to help better align with our database solution, that we remove the range and simply have it be a fixed number. I'm suggesting 4 years. There is, as a reminder, no costs to the licensees except time to submit the paperwork. With this all online, the submission process, I envision, is actually going to be fairly easy of no change, no change, no change, submit type scenario or update. But towards that, I wanted to bring to this panel and to the public that suggestion that, or at least a request, can we change the rule so it doesn't give a spread, but a fixed number? Anybody in the
Yeah,
room?
any feelings about that fixed number?
First of all, my esteemed colleagues, sit back on this side of the table, I can call you colleagues.
Like 4 years.
Yeah. I like 4 years, I'm willing to discuss it. It seemed, 5 years seemed a little too far out. And 3 certainly seemed a little too short. So you meet me halfway.
All right.
So the only negative side I can see between 4 years and 5 is it costs money and time to process those both on our side and their side. And we're doing extensive auditing on an annual basis anyway. So do we really
That's
need?
when we get the license, then do the oversight while the license.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we
Point,
go
considering-
6 years.
Considering our annual audit process keeps everything in alignment, 5.
And really, I mean, obviously we have to apply the statutory stuff, but once the person's licensed, as long as we're ensuring they're maintaining that standard under which they were initially licensed. I mean, I send my paperwork into Oregon, they send me a driver's license, I'm going to be in I guess I just, Conley points out, if we've got the oversight,
That's the most
the
important.
relicensing is getting us more information, more useful information, more.
There is additional information that comes in on the renewal process. It's mostly a refresh on the corporate overstructure.
That's something.
But something
We
I
have
could,
the audit.
I could pull that in,
We already do.
important to define aspects as
Yeah.
opposed to. So it's certainly an easier path to just remain one dash from the rule, just simply say 5 year.
I think we are gonna have to pick a set amount of time because of the new database. I'm not sure the new database it could be programmed, but how much more will it cost?
Right.
To have a range. So I would like to hear
I like. the
From-
idea of-
from the
sorry, yeah.
licensees on what's best for them.
Is this all employees or just officers?
This is just,
This is for the
Company.
ADW license.
Oh, just the actual ADW license itself, not the individual.
Yes, because right now you can renew 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, or 5 year.
Oh,
and now you're wondering, why would anyone choose less than 5?
yeah, I mean, I would assume we submit most of this regularly anyways in our audits.
But
That's what you're-
by rule, and that's what I'm trying
We
to.
have to pick a,
review.
we have to pick a number.
Russell, fine. I mean, I would wonder why not do, I hate to say it, but go to the longest number, because every year when you audit us, we provide lots of information. If there's any change in our physical locations, organizational structure, you're going to know ahead of time. I mean, I think we're required, we're mandated to tell you any change that occurs in our organization as it happens. So I'm not sure what the utility of a shorter period is.
Gene DeBrier, he is the one person I know that does every 3 years. I would like to hear if he has a large concern about it and if there's a reason not to do 5 years. If he wants to.
Mr. Shabir, are you there?
I am here. I just honestly prefer doing every 3 years.
I like.
That's just a personal preference.
It's a personal preference, all right?
It is.
Full time.
I move the Gene Shabir file our 3-year one.
Yeah.
Do you have any significant objections to if ruled to be 5 years?
No, I would not.
I'd say we just go 5 years. Does
Does
anyone else?
care, anybody else? Carrie, do you care?
Our oversight's insane.
The oversight's gotta be.
Well, then let's do one, because it's just less.
And this is just opening to.
Because we got.
Less redundancy. It's.
I don't have an opinion on this.
Yeah, I think you would, but I wanted to make sure that you felt included.
All right.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
We're on the same page, then I'll start, we can discuss this in the
Large
in the large meeting, that
And then
we'll start
start.
start that process. And towards that, just so everyone knows, I'm moving on to number 6. And next year, I am seeing the majority of the ADWs are up for renewal. Everyone except for one. So next year is going to be a very busy first quarter or two. Not hopefully, I anticipate the new database will be up and will help streamline the process. But I'm hoping to get a jump start on this and reach out to everyone in Q1. I would like to invite every ADW to come here to get to discuss their license process and get their approvals.
It's always
in
been,
person.
it was always mandatory that the ADWs come for that meeting. Because of COVID, we haven't done that, but I do think it's time for us to go back to that.
Yeah.
For the 5-year renewal.
So in anticipation of that, even though the licenses are good through June 30th, I'd like to get these locked up and done prior to the May meeting. And I'm suggesting next year's in-person meeting in May. It's April. We'll talk about that then. Looking at the schedule, Preakness is running on the May 16th. The commission meeting would be the following Thursday, May 21st. So I don't see a particular conflict schedules around that. But that is still 13 months out. And that was all just advisory on renewables. All right, so item number 7, a discussion on customer service, artificial intelligence use, and patron feedback. It's mostly just be sharing some of the comments I've heard from end users about frustration around the AI used by some companies, customer service, what is the electronic discussions. And I wanted to see if anyone has anything to share in regards to the journey of integration of AI into the customer service process. It's certainly not something we're mandating or even considering. or inclusion in our aspect. I'm just trying to consider best practices and how to minimize customer angst. Because it pops up more often than you think. And I think it's considering the unique nature of our industry, AI integration certainly something that would have its challenges.
I guess I wonder, is this something the ADWs are already aware of dealing with, or is this information we're bringing to the ADWs, hey, we're getting feedback saying?
We're asking.
Yeah, I'm asking if anyone's had feedback. When I hear occasional or specific examples, I do chat with that group. But as a
Like on Reddit.
yes,
So people understand where your check.
Reddit or just yeah. Sometimes I get a phone call. I need help with this ADW. I'm having trouble and I can't get through past their customer service because their AI sucks.
Mike, this even goes back to the verification of residency and things like that. The difficulty that my wife and I had in changing the address was really pain. And I don't know where AI fits in, but I mean, we were doing it in a sense, full technology. I think one of the companies asked for fax or something like that. And so.
Or because it was a secure document.
Yes. Yeah.
They didn't have a portal to upload.
I hear you. Thank you for not calling out anyone specifically about what that experience was. So again, I'm not actually asking or calling anyone. Is there anyone who wants to volunteer any information about their experience around this and their challenges, or shall we just move on to the next item? Fair enough. Looks like. All right. It's on my radar, and I will do my job to help share that information when I come across it. The additional item I wanted to bring up was last month's ARCI. ARCI is the Association of Racing Commissioners International, which Director Wynn is a proud member of, and who
The commission is.
commission is okay, and that we chair the Model Rules Committee for
It's the auditing committee.
auditing. Thank you. And we had a proposal for the auditing standards for IT, which are already being met by our audits. Did you want to speak towards that? Or just kind of, I mean,
Go ahead.
Right.
It's.
so we proposed, and these model rules are adopted by other states who are participating members. And we had proposed third-party information security audits regarding advanced deposit wagering companies. Some of those aspects are including a third-party audit by someone who has proper credentials, that we establish auditing standards.
Can you talk about those credentials and?
Oh, sure.
And people you know that have them?
Yes, so towards that, I will quote, all ADW companies must engage in an independent third-party auditor to conduct an annual audit of their information security and operational controls. That third-party auditor must possess at least one of the following credentials. Be a certified information security auditor, CISA certification, be a lead auditor for ISO, or a certified information security manager. I happen to be at least one of those. That the audits that the ORC does do and create on behalf for the ADWs meets the standards that are already part of the proposal that we're submitting to the ARCI. Meaning that if these are adopted and other states choose to accept these standards as well, the ADW licensees who are
Under Oregon.
would already meet these standards.
This came up just for a little background. Ed Martin, he's the president of the ARCI, brought me some rules and said, hey, I talked to this expert and he said the ADW should be doing this. It just so happened that some of the ADWs were at that meeting with me. And I had some immediate concerns because some of the suggestions were to hand over confidential security information to every jurisdiction, which is a huge security violation. So we went back and painstakingly went through a multitude of different rules. If anybody's interested, I have those standards with me. And we used what ARCI already does, plus what ISACA does, one of the big international security companies, NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards on Technology, and several others, the Canadian, I forgot what the Canadian one was called. And all these are marked out for all the different standards that we are already doing. And put in a document, we brought it to the meeting. The chair of ARCI, or the president of ARCI, was very pleased with it. There was no additions from any of the staff, including GLI, who is one of the biggest auditors in the world, who also would probably be auditing some of these ADWs that we do not have. Because they'll have to find, and they meet the same credentials, so they were happy with that as well. Those will be going to the Model Rules Committee in May. So we just wanted to make you aware of that, see if you have any concerns. I can't imagine any since you're already compliant with it, but that's it. Comments from anyone?
Comments, yes. Good.
Questions? Yes.
I just wanted to applaud Micah and Connie and the commission and all the ADWs for the work you're doing with ARCI in this area, because as an outside observer, over the past couple of months, it's been impressed on me how stark the difference is between what's happening in Oregon and what's happening in other jurisdictions. So I just wanted to say on the record that I'm appreciative of what you're doing in this regard.
Thank you. Other comments regarding this topic? The last item is an open discussion. Industry changes, what would be helpful for ADW growth? Anything else that comes to mind? What can we do to make this easier? Carrie, you got your hand raised again?
Or is it?
Oh, okay. Right.
All right, then I had intended to do this at the beginning, but I want to thank Russell Fine from the Gameplay Network and Will Elijapijevic.
Close?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thumbs up, no matter what you said.
Well, that's kind of, that's very kind of him. I grew up south of Chicago, so I'm used to things with a lot of letters. Thank you very much for being here. Really good to have all this participation this morning, both the meetings. And without further ado, now I really want to whack.
Go ahead.
I bring this, I close it. What the heck I'm doing? So thank you guys.
Okay.
It was.